Hello and welcome to Views on News. I am Jawad. Tehami. In today's program, we are going to take up for discussion two important topics. The first relates to the 30 years of the Oslo Accords, and the second relates to the recent developments as far as the bilateral relationship between Iran and the United States is concerned. And now, starting with the first one, the first Oslo Accord was signed on 13th of September 1993 between the then Prime Minister of Israel, Yitzhak Rabin, and the leader of the Palestinian Liberation Organization, Yasser Arafat. Now, the second Oslo Accord was signed between the two sides in September 1995. The historic Oslo Accords were basically aimed at bringing peace in this particular region. When the signing of the first Oslo Accord was done on 13th of September 1993, both the sides for the first time ever recognized each other and also pledged to end the decades-long conflict. There were a number of steps which were to be taken in order to bring peace in the region. But after the lapse of 30 years, did Oslo Accords achieve the goals which were set in it? And we have seen also the continuous violations by Israeli side as far as the human rights violations are concerned and the international law is also concerned. We have also seen continuous building of illegal Israeli settlements in the West Bank, which have been criticized by the US even. Now, what is the way forward, or the peace remains elusive in this particular region with continuous illegal actions by the Israeli side? To understand that, we are honored to have been joined by His Excellency Mr. Nader Alturk, his Charge d'Affaires, Embassy of Palestine in Pakistan. Excellency, thank you very much for your time, for being with us.
Thank you very much.
Also, we are honored to have been joined in the studio by Mr. Mansoor, Jafar, is Arab journalist, editor Al Arabia TV at Dubai, with expertise on international and Arab affairs with focus on peace process in the Middle East and Palestine. Mr. Mansoor, thank you very much for your time. Also, for being with us on Views on News tonight. Really appreciate that. Excellency, let me start with you. Now, what were the major aims of the Oslo Accords when it was signed at that time?
Assalamu alaikum. First of all, Oslo, it was not the goal which I was looking for. It was only step, okay, for getting our independent state with Jerusalem as it is capital. According to the agreement, it was need to be with the 5 years the Israelis force of occupation need to make withdrawal from the Palestinian territories to start for the first time negotiation between Palestinian and Israelis face to face. Oslo came after Madrid conference, which was started after the Gulf War against Iraq. We was joining that with our brothers Jordanian as one party for that negotiation. We didn't succeed for 2 years to reach any results, so we start Oslo with secret channel to break the ice and go for our goals, which is independent Palestinian state on the Palestinian territories on land of 1967 with Jerusalem at its capital. We achieve our responsibilities and to giving the message of peace, stability, that we are human beings looking for international peace and looking for peace in our region. On the other hand, the Israelis leadership, maybe Mr. Ishtiaq Rabin, he was once defense minister of Israel, killed a lot of Palestinians, punished a lot of Palestinians, but in that time he giving impression that he changed and he become a man of peace, and maybe he can be a partner for the Palestinian for peace process to reach our goals for us and for the next generation from the two people, Palestinian people and the Israelis people. But what happened later on, that the Israelis themselves, the radical groups, killed Ishtiaq Rabin because they think that he is a spy, he is a traitor, he is against the a dream of Zionists, okay, of the whole land of Palestine to become Israel. They killed him, and right now, who is killed him are right now ruling in Israel as the leadership, as a government. According to that, until now, we didn't find a partner for negotiation, real partner in Israeli side for reach our goals of peace, stability in the region and in the world. We hope so. Later on, we find this kind of partner, okay, to reach our goals for getting better future for all the next generation and all the people in our region, inshallah.
Right. Let me bring in Mr. Mansoor into the discussion. Mr. Mansoor, now, as mentioned by His Excellency, that the then Prime Minister of Israel was assassinated by Israelis themselves, and those people who are primarily holding the helm of affairs over there in Israel right now. So it was basically the far-right Israelis which didn't accept or which were not in favor of that particular accord, hence making us believe that they are also not in favor of bringing peace into the region. Your take?
Actually, I considered that the Oslo Accords, first or second, they are considered to be the biggest hoax, political hoax of this century. And the Palestinians were trapped in very tactfully by the Israelis, by the Israeli authorities, under the garb of secret talks at Oslo and before that Madrid, etc. And they very carefully chalked out the peace plans according to the Oslo Accord. They kept three major issues that were vital for the liberation of Palestine. First was regarding the status of Al-Quds al-Sharif, that ought to be the eternal capital of a free and Palestine state. It was kept for the future negotiation. And secondly, the status of the Palestinian prisoners who were either in the Israeli jails or in the Palestinian Authority jails, that had to be negotiated later on. And above all, the status of the Palestinian who were basically forced to migrate from Palestine, their original land Palestine, to various Arab countries, to various parts of the world as diaspora. So these three statuses were kept on hold very tactfully, and various deadlines were fixed for achieving these things. They first betrayed from the release of the Palestinians who were in the jails, and later on they budged from their claim that the Al-Quds al-Sharif cannot be the eternal capital of the Palestinian state. It is basically the capital of Israel, Zionist Israel. And the third thing which they did not complete, they considered as a what we call a big threat for their own Israeli identity, the very state of Israel. It was basically the right of return of the Palestinians who were forcefully expelled from the Palestinian lands, because Israel considered that if those Palestinians were allowed to return to their original land in Palestine, and if the elections are held according to the democratic rules prevalent in these days, certainly those people will be in majority and they will win, and they will certainly rule the country. So their own existence, political existence or their physical existence will be at stake. So Israel very tactfully played with these three tools under the cover of Oslo Accord, and they managed to deceive the Palestinian leadership, which basically made a very big concession to the Israelis. The PLO, they amended their own charter that basically secured their right to freedom. We also saw on the TV screens the late Yasser Arafat. He was giving his pistol in front of the so-called peacemaker at that time, but they did not honor that sacrifice of this great leader. They belittled his image by deceiving him step by step in the eyes of his own people, and then he was confined to his own Ramallah headquarters and given slow poison till he met his death. So these are, I guess, the gory tales which was played by the Israelis, and till now, and now we are looking at another phase of their Israeli face, basically the ultra right religious extremists led by Netanyahu, who is basically ruling the country. And they were the people at the time of signing of the Oslo Accord who did not like the signing of the agreement, and they basically polluted the minds of the Israeli youth, and one of a fanatic youth, he himself shot at the peacemaking prime minister of at that time, Ishaq Rabin. He was killed. And Shimon Peres, he could not do anything as the president of Israel at that time. But later on, certainly he shared the Nobel Peace Award with the Yasser Arafat, and that is also another what we call a story that becomes the part of the history, but it did not solve the suffering or did not solve the problem of the Palestinian people till now.
Right, Excellency, as mentioned by Mr. Mansoor, Israel is very tactfully deceiving the leadership at that particular time, even didn't taking into account the great sacrifice made by the Palestinian leadership. How Israel has gone on to usurp the basic and the fundamental rights of the Palestinian people over the years?
Before I answer your question, please give me opportunity to explain one thing. Maybe my colleague forget some points that prisoners was not one of the final solution. The final solution, which was transfer for the future, was only 5 cases: Jerusalem, borders, water resources, refugees, and settlements. Okay, we transferred that. It was not our choice to transfer that, but we was try to break the ice which we face in Madrid to find a solution to start real process on the ground. Okay, we tried to be, our leadership was wise. I tried to be a pragmatic leadership to don't look in the eyes of the world that there are not people looking for peace. No, they was giving a message of peace, that we are wise, we are ready to give the price of peace if the Israelis give ready for that. We was ready, but the Israelis until now they are not ready for making real peace on the ground. This is the first thing. Second, for the Israelis' actions on the ground, since we are starting Oslo agreement until now, we facing many and many problems day by day. Oslo actually giving us power of autonomy, okay, to be control part of our life by ourselves, and this was for us was a dream to start the first step for establishing our own independent state. And we didn't go for that suddenly. We do that, actually we have a step for that in 1974, when we decide that the Palestinian parliament in that year decide we are going to establishing a Palestinian state of any piece of Palestinian territory. The Israelis' power of forced power of occupation withdrawal from that piece of territory, or is we going to have the power to make it free by our power. Oslo came according to this vision. So what does the Israelis do? Israelis using time for building more settlements, stalling more water resources, build more and more settlements around Jerusalem, and transfer people of Jerusalem from their own houses or own properties by fake documents made by the Israelis themselves. For this was used by the Israelis to destroy day by day our dream, our rights to establishing our own state on our homeland. In that time, we decided to getting only 22% out of our historical homeland, Palestine, which we get about 6,000 kilometers out of 27,200 kilometers, which is the historical land of Palestine. Only to give the opportunity for the next generation for have stability and peaceful for build their future, and later on we see what can be happen between the both people. The Israelis didn't give any opportunity for peace. They always make clashes, aggressive violence against the Palestinian, for support their settlers, stalling, as I said before, more water resources from the Palestinians, for close Jerusalem, and even for Jerusalem, it is one of the rights of the human being to have the right to pray in his holy places. Jerusalem, it is closed. Most of young generations didn't have the opportunity from Gaza Strip and West Bank, don't have the opportunity to visit. Our Palestinians around the world not able to go. For the refugees, according to Oslo, we're getting the opportunity to giving the right of return not to their own territories, but for other part of Palestinian territories, for more than 300,000 persons. There was not dream ever they will have the opportunity to live in the Palestinian homeland or be grave there. We give that according to Oslo, we have do that. For the borders, until now the Israelis not allowed Palestinians to control their own borders. Okay, after even withdrawal of Gaza by the Israelis, by themselves, by Mr. Ariel Sharon, when he withdrew from Gaza in 2005, he actually was giving the opportunity for what he couldn't do it when he was there, by getting civil war between the Palestinians themselves. And what is actually happened by our brother in Hamas later on 2006 and 2007 and 2007, since that time until now, Gaza, it is out of the control of our legal leadership. So the scenario of Israel is making Palestinian territories, Palestinians, political group, separate, not united. They are succeed until now in that. We hope so we can solve this issue by our steps from our wise leadership. Second, they try to destroy any opportunity for peace, independent state for Palestine in their own territories, because we have two visions. Visions that Palestinian rights from the other hand, the other, in other hand, we having the Israelis vision or Zionist vision that the land of Palestine, the land from Furat to Nile, it is the land of Israel, which means Palestine only the first step for the Jewish state on the our region. This is the conflict between these two visions. We hope so, as I said before, one day soon, inshallah, we find some wise person. He is ready to be real partner for peace in the ISIS leadership, to reach the goal of getting independent state for Palestinian people and getting normal relationship with Israelis. Until now, we couldn't reach that, sadly.
Right. Mr. Mansoor, when we talk about the Israeli illegal settlements, particularly in the West Bank, we've also seen the Secretary of the State of the United States of America, Mr. Blinken, also criticized this particular move earlier when he visited Israel back in January. Now, according to a left-wing Israeli organization, Peace Now, it says that 12,855, that is the record of Israeli settlements in a given year, in this particular year of 2023. How this particular issue of illegal settlements could be addressed? Is there any sort of a role the US can directly play in this particular regard?
Under the international law, these settlements are considered illegal. And even the United States of America, their official position regarding the settlement issue is they do not consider them legal, because they are built on the forcefully occupied land of the Palestinians. And as the ambassador pointed out, that the Israelis very tactfully played with the issue of settlements. They basically create a settlement and then create a military boundary in order to protect, or in the garb of protecting that settlement, and bring their own fortified military around those. And they try to control the water reservoir near those settlements, so that the Palestinians are deprived. Lately, they also, when there were a lot of suicide bombing during the first Intifada and second Intifada in the occupied areas, they tried to control those activities by building a more than 600 or 700 kilometer long a separating wall that basically barred the Palestinians who were trying to enter into the occupied areas, and they badly failed. And these are basically the official stances, But the issue is, every time the international bodies, they try to portray or bring a legal verdict against the settlements, either at the platform of United Nations or any world fora, any world forums. The Israelis, they basically make a very calculated move and spoil all those efforts, either in the name of veto by the United States of America, declaring them, oh, they could not be discussed at this forum. And similarly, they are basically, I guess there are some positive signs in this bleak picture as well, that the European Union, they have very forceful stance regarding these settlements. And lately there was a movement called boycott divestment movement. They basically made a campaign, very forceful campaign, in which the European countries, they barred the what we call the wine produced in the West Bank areas, and they asked to place a clear-cut labels on the bottles of those wine, that these things are prepared by in the illegal occupied settlements of Israel, so that the world come to know about the atrocities that are being committed against the rights of the Palestinian, and how their land has been grabbed by the Israelis, and how these settlements are basically used. Under the Oslo Accord, I guess they prepared 3 areas, A, B, C. So in A area, it was under the full control of the Palestinian National Authority, and the B, there was a mix of Palestinian National Authority and the Israeli forces, and the C was declared totally controlled by the Israelis. So Israelis even did not fulfill those obligations under that Oslo Accord, according to distribution of the land which they made themselves, and they agreed upon, because it is the history and it is the divine commandment that the Jews, means we are talking about the Zionist Jews, they will never fulfill their promise, and this verdict has been declared in the Holy Quran, and historically it has been proved that they never fulfill their promises, and they have proved in the form of betraying the Palestinian leadership and the Palestinian people under the Oslo Accords, and even the later on White River Accords, whatever accords you talk about, they did all those violations, because they do not believe in the peace. They have their own expansionist design, and till now Israel is the only state that do not have its declared state boundaries. They considered that, it has been written somewhere, that mulko ki ya Israel min al Furat ila Nil, that they consider their boundaries from the river Furat to river Nile, and even they have their expansionary design to the eastern parts of the Medina, because they want to return to that Khyber fort from which they were expelled, and historically they have their own claims on those areas. So this is the present state of affair, and there is no I guess the Israel do not have the right to be represented in the United Nations, because it does not have its declared boundaries, and without declared boundary under the political science or under the international law, you do not enjoy the status of a state.
Right. Mr. Mansoor Jafar, Arab journalist, editor at the Al Arabia TV in Dubai with expertise on international Arab affairs. Thank you very much for your time, for being with us on Views on News tonight. Really appreciate that. We were also honored to have been joined in the studio by His Excellency Mr. Nader Alturk, Charge d'Affaires, Embassy of Palestine in Pakistan. Thank you very much for your time, Excellency.
I just need 1 minute, if you don't mind. Just my brother here mentioned the position of the Americans, of the USA. USA until 2017 was not accepting settlements in Palestine as legal. It was dealing with it as illegal. But actually with the deal with the Senate, which was made by Mr. Trump, he tried to change that. And until now, the new leadership of USA, Mr. Biden and his government, didn't change any step was taken illegally by Mr. Trump in his period. When he shifted the embassy to East Jerusalem, it was not legal, and until now, Mr. Biden changed that. when he recognized many of the settlements and Julan area, which is for Syria, as part of Israel. He didn't shift that back until now, Mr. Biden. When he speak about refugees, even they start some steps, but it's not enough for supporting the UNRWA. For the issue of these things, and until now, Mr. Biden didn't reopen the consulate of USA in East Jerusalem, which is under the need to deal with the Palestinian. Until now, he didn't reopen the office of PLO, or Palestinian state in Washington until now. So until now, we are facing the same of the steps was taken by Mr. Trump. So until now, it was not reversed by the new government of USA.
Actually,
we are waiting them to be more wise and more legal, following all the international resolution and follow the international law, by giving being in the right place of the history, by supporting the legal rights of the Palestinian people.
Palestinian people, there is no change of policy as far as the Biden administration is concerned.
Until now, not enough.
Actually, to that of the policy of the Trump administration, His Excellency Nader Alturk, Charge d'Affaires, Embassy of Palestine in Pakistan. Thank you very much for your time, for being with us on Views on News tonight. Really appreciate that. As mentioned by both the participants, it happens to be the responsibility of the international community. Even the United Nations and the United States should take lead, considering the kind of miserable situation the Palestinians are living under the illegal authority of the Israelis, and they must take concrete measures in order to alleviate those miseries of the Palestinian people. With this, we come to the end of the first segment of today's show. After a short break, we'll be catching you up for the second segment. For that, stay tuned.
The ultimate cricketing showdown in Asia is back. The most anticipated clash of the event is here. The big guns from Asia are here to compete for the glory. This is the Asia Cup, the tournament that will have you on the edge of your seats. Don't miss it.
Hello and welcome back to Views on News. The second issue which we are going to discuss in today's show relates to the bilateral relationship between Iran and the US and the recent developments in it. The US has issued a blanket waiver for international banks to transfer $6 billion in Iranian frozen money in South Korea. Now, Secretary of State Mr. Blinken had signed this particular waiver last week. He had also said, let me quote him, to facilitate the release of 5 US citizens held in Iran. The US is committed to release 5 Iranian nationals held in the US and to permit the transfer of approximately $6 billion in restricted Iranian funds, unquote. Now, this particular move has been criticized by the Republicans in the US. Also, in another development, we have seen the Iranian foreign minister expressing Iran's readiness to negotiate last year's draft agreement aimed at reviving the 2015 nuclear deal. We'll be taking the analysis from our experts regarding the developments, especially this prisoner exchange between the US and Iran. Also, US's move to release the Iranian frozen money. Also, we'll be talking about the chances of the revival of the stalled nuclear pact, stalled negotiations regarding the nuclear pact that is known as Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action that was signed between Iran and the 6 major world powers, including the US. But in 2018, during the Trump administration, the US backed away from this particular deal, the nuclear accord. For that, we'll be joined by Dr. Jamil Khan, his former ambassador, and on the phone line we'll be joined by Dr. Ishtiaq Ahmad, expert international relations. Dr. Jamil, can you hear me, please?
I can hear you loud and clear.
Please, could you give us your analysis regarding the move by the US to release the Iranian frozen money? Do we understand this particular move by the US as a sort of a step towards a thaw between the US and Iran? And are the two countries coming closer now?
Well, I think the ice has started melting, and the major reason for that is that once the nuclear accord, what we call it Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, it was stalled, or US withdrew, despite all the pressures of the P5, other three countries of P5+1, but unilaterally, against the spirit of the accord, nuclear accord, which is a Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, against the spirit, they withdrew it unilaterally. So that was a different scenario. What happened after the withdrawal? There is a whole lot of literature available on that, because Iran, after the withdrawal, was free from that binding of the agreement, and they reportedly were able to carry on with their enrichment. What level of enrichment they have reached, according to some unvalidated and unverified literature, it says they have reached the level of over 80%. And for your viewer, um, any country is able to cross the threshold of 25% can, within no time, reach to the weapon grade enrichment. So that is one aspect. US knows about that Iran has its assets so well protected that Israel has had been giving so many threats that they would be able to neutralize it. But obviously, in their calculation, it appears that they are not in a position, or they were not in a position. Then comes the geopolitical new landscape in which China, after this withdrawal of the accord, was able to have its footprint in a much stronger manner in Iran, including their defense-related agreements of Iran, besides the economic agreements of about 400 billion spanning in 25 years. So Iran has now, obviously, it's a power to be reckoned with. They have their foothold there. Then comes the relations brokered by Iran between Saudi Arabia and Iran. So all these factors, and what impact would it have on US, and what impact Iran would have of this relation in terms of JCPOA, and comprehensive plan of action, it definitely have its impact, because the US and Israel know that level Iran has attained. They know what geopolitical importance Iran has gained, and combine all these factors, it leads us to believe that the latest decision of the Biden administration about release of $6 billion is one in that direction. That at least with the revival of the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, um, they would be able to have the IAAC inspectors back in that land. they would be able to have the access in Iran. And then in that case, they would be able to monitor. But I find it very hard because uh, the Iranians have their assets in various places, which, according to IAE report, it is undeclared places, undetected places. Now, what was basically called? That is also important for the viewers
Right,
to know
I'll
that.
take your view, Dr. Jamil. I'll take your view regarding this later. Let me bring in Dr. Ishtiaq Ahmad also into the discussion. Dr. Ishtiaq Ahmad, expert in international relations, joining us on the phone line. Dr. Ishtiaq, thank you very much for joining it at Views on News tonight. Really appreciate that. What's your understanding of this particular move of the United States of America of releasing the frozen Iranian money of $6 billion?
Well, thank you for having me. Uh, this is not the first time that this sort of agreement is, or exchange is taking place. If you recall, during President Obama's time also, a lot of money was paid by the Obama administration to the Iranian regime, and that is how we also saw, forward movement on the nuclear issue as well. I think I will, like a little bit differ with your previous speaker. I think any move in this region towards peace, conflict resolution, accord should be welcomed. Not necessarily by Pakistan alone, but all the countries that live in this region. I think any reduction in tension or resolution of conflict contributes to economic prosperity and the collective goods that nations share in this part of the world or the whole world. As far as JCPOA is concerned, I think it was negotiated, signed, and then the Americans withdrew it unilaterally in 2018. Since then, there have been off and on negotiations and uh, breakups in the process. And if this exchange leads to, this process back on track and then final settlement, I think that would be a very good development.
Right, Dr. Ishtiaq Ahmad, expert international relations, joining us on the phone line. Thank you very much for being with us on the show tonight. We really appreciate that. Dr. Jamil Khan, now, by looking at these developments, what are the main reasons at this particular point in history that apparently seem to bring Iran and the U.S. Closer to each other?
Well, Iran and US, I wouldn't say closer to each other, but yes, definitely their strained relations have started the normalize to moving towards a normalization. So yes, it's a step in the right direction, and basically it's in the same geopolitical landscape what I was describing, where Iran has been able to restore its relations with Saudi Arabia. And by the way, Saudi Arabia or the Gulf countries, they still have a very good influence of US. Now, this normalization of relations, or at least a step towards normalization of relation, I'm sure that the diplomatic expectation by the US and its allies are that they have the access of the IAEA inspectors in Iran. And they want to make the assessment in the new emerging geopolitical situation where Iran stands and what capability it has attained. And if it has attained the capability, what I was describing, over 80% of the enrichment, then obviously the inspectors would guide that if the accord is again revived, the Joint Comprehensive Accord, then in that case, the centrifuge has to be again reduced to 6,104, 6,104 from 20,000 centrifuge. So there is a whole lot of details which Iran has to once again compromise. What extent Iran is able to do it and declare it? The understanding of some of the experts in the world is that Iran has attained what it wanted to attain, and it has secured what capability it wanted to have. And now the declared sites, perhaps Iran would agree to follow the JCPO and open it for the IAEC. And obviously, at that stage, then we will see how people 5+1 are going to assert their pressure on Iran to also declare other sides if they are able to detect it. That's one.
Right,
Second,
Dr. Jamil Khan, I really seek your pardon for the interjection over here. Unfortunately, we're short of time. Do you think there is any sort of a convergence of interest as far as the international oil markets or the crude market is concerned when it comes to this improving or a sort of a thaw in a relationship between Iran and the US?
oh, well, surely, because it would have a positive impact on the. If you have asked me about the oil market, yes, it's going to have a positive impact on that because Iran is a player and they have a substantial production of their oil. So they would add value to it because Saudi Arabia has started scaling it down. So adding Iran oil and those countries who are still purchasing Russian oil, they will eh, probably the US would be expecting that they would be able to marginalize Russia by um, opening Iran oil, and Russia would then have a financial crunch. Perhaps these are the games what probably has been planned in terms of the oil market in the international world.
Your point is well taken, Dr. Jamil Khan, former ambassador, joining us on Skype. Thank you very much for being with us on the show tonight. Really appreciate that. With that, we come to the end of today's show. Till the next one, take good care of yourselves.